Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video M2A600 I'll be talking about new and exciting features incorporating Maya and Arnold. As you might have guessed by the title of the video M2A600, this is actually a very big announcement. First of all, Autodesk Maya is now 2020, and with that there's a new Arnold version as well, which is Arnold 6. Arnold 6's main feature is that it's now fully GPU, it's off the beta stage, so there's a lot more things going on with the GPU and a lot more improvements for you guys to play around with. I've got some kind of feature sheet here which I'll be quickly going through. I will not display all the updates because there's quite a few things in Maya 2020, especially on the animation side. They push quite a few things. For me, look dev lighting, more importantly, is the Arnold side, the GPU updates, the viewport improvements, and maybe some kind of Bifrost things, which I haven't really looked into that, but it looks very promising what it's now capable to do. So let's just scroll through here. So animation, there's cache playback, which is great. It's super fast now. Nice using the GPU to actually cache it a lot faster. You can see now it almost is more than double the speed of the FPS for animation's sake. Yeah, I'll just scroll down for the anim and audio stuff. What is pretty interesting is the little rivet command here, which allows you to snap locators on the geometry and they will follow it. It's super nice and convenient to use that for instance, hooking up a distance tool to measure focus distance for lighting. So I will showcase this in a moment. It's pretty cool. And then rendering. So there's actually a new standard surface shader. It's a more simpler version of the AI standard surface shader. They removed a few attributes to make it a bit more artist friendly. I will show that too. And light editor improvements, which is pretty nice. So you have now a dedicated UI to control lights, look through them, change a few settings. It's pretty cool if you just have your fixed UI setup or your workspaces and then you just want to tweak lighting slightly. It's pretty cool. Then Bifrost is a pretty big thing here. As I said, I haven't looked into setting up Bifrost graphs yet. This might be a future video. Then we have viewport improvements, modeling improvements, a new retopo, which is interesting, and a remeshing tool, and rigging. Let's see what else is there. Yeah, proximity raptor format. It sounds interesting. I haven't tested it yet. And let's just jump to the Arnold 6 feature sheet. So the main feature is that the GPU is now pixel feature and API compatible with the CPU, which means it's a one-to-one match. It's a lot faster as it feels. It has now physical sky shader, which is improved. It has USD ecosystem implementation, which is great. And obviously it uses NVIDIA's RTX technology for the GPU rendering, which is pretty cool. What else? Improved support for OSL, OpenVDB, on-demand texture loading, which is great. It's really nice for the GPU to actually load the textures only when needed, so it does not kill your memory in your card. Startup time, improved startup time. Shadow match shader, which I'm using. The reduced noise is great. It's a lot faster now to clean up your results. Almost all LPEs, or the most important ones, are now supported. Most of the lights, all cameras, and most of the shaders. I'm just scrolling down. You can, I guess, read this or pause the video to just get a bit more into this. So this is the feature sheet for Arnold, and this is now what I have. So my idea here is to first show some of the new interactive viewport things, which you can do now, and then we will do some, not really look dev, but I'll just show you a few things which are pretty nice, and it's a great workflow now if you use the GPU for sure. So first of all, you can see I have my hypershade. I've got my light textures, and we can just freely swap out the lights or the HDRIs, and you can see my chrome ball. Everything is updating, and this is right now not rendering. This is real time using the OpenGL viewport 2.0, which is pretty impressive, I must say. It's super fast. You can display bump maps, roughness maps. You can actually display displacement, which is pretty cool. I will show that in a bit as well. And again, yeah, you can rotate your lights. Everything is updating So if I just rotate this now, you can see the light is updating, everything is nice in real time here. And this, you can actually use the OpenGL now to actually light your scenes, like at least to get them where you need them to be, like 80%, and then you can fine tune them in the live render if you need to. So before we do all this model and scene is actually provided by Aria Salti. He's a very talented artist, so he was happy enough to give me his models just to showcase a few things on shader and look dev side. But before we jump into rendering that, this is the Autodesk shader ball, which is pretty cool. It has nice features like displaying subsurface scattering steps, and it has nice shapes to it to actually capture all the details. So first I want to jump into this just to show you a few basic things right here. So obviously you have your shader controls, your diffuse colors, they work as expected. You can change to your metal slider, boost these guys up, and you can actually see you get a pretty good feedback here right away. Changing the roughness, IOR. Oh, the IR doesn't work with metal, I guess. So metalness fully on, and then like this. And yeah, let's say we want to connect the bump map. So let's just do that. Connect the normal map. Yeah, so to display the textures, you need to enable the checkerboard here in your viewport. So when that is enabled, you can see the bump map is fully on now, and we can just slightly tweak this to our liking. So we don't want to go too crazy. Really subtle, I guess, 0.05 or something. And there you can see now the bump map is applied. We have our own roughness. So if I bring up the roughness, we can totally see the displacement. Obviously, if you want to have different, like a gold shader or something like this, maybe. And you can totally display all of this just right in the viewport, which is amazing. And let's go to a bit more advanced thing. So now we have actually a brick shader, which has a few things connected. It has a bump map connected, and a cool feature is it actually displays, or the viewport is able to handle displacement displays. So if I connect the displacement map to the shading group attributes, you should see there's some kind of little displacement shift going on here. So let's see if I can actually boost this. You can see now that if I boost the scale of the displacement, the whole geometry is actually extruded in real time, which is very amazing, I find. So you can actually display ZBrush maps right in here without actually having to render them fully. And let's just switch the environment to maybe a studio environment like that, and you can clearly see now how nicely everything looks with the roughness maps applied and all that. So let's actually compare this to the render. So let's just see how this looks. I'm switching over to the Arnold render view and hitting render. And then let's see what that brings us. So yeah, this is the render. And if I show now the view panes again, this is a pretty cool match, like especially the lighting, right? The lighting is, I would say, pretty spot on. If you look at the gray sphere up there, it's pretty close. And yeah, obviously there is some more going on the render side. It's ray tracing, the shadows are more accurate and everything like that. So that's actually pretty cool. If I now want to change, let's say, what do you want to change here? Change the weight of my diffuse color, right? So this is now changing as well, and I'm using the denoise as well, if you can see. So this is fully on the GPU now. This is my beauty pass. If I change it, you can see how it's updating. It's pretty fast. If I switch to RGB denoise, this is actually denoising, and this is now a 1000 times 1200 pixel image. So it's pretty big actually for previewing stuff. And you can see just how super fast everything works and how nice it is to just do look dev in this environment. Super cool stuff. You can see I'm getting excited by just because before it was a bit buggy. The GPU didn't work as expected most of the times, but now it feels like it's right there, right? It's super nice to work with this now. All right, so let's jump actually to this little thing here, this droid version. A few things which unfortunately does not work right now is if you plug in color correct nodes or anything like that, they will not be displayed in the OpenGL, unfortunately. So I hope that's something they will still fix, so we can actually use color correct nodes in OpenGL and visualize them. Let's generate a preview for this guy. And then you can see the base color applied to him. And we should see something hopefully. Yeah, so this is the droid's default color texture. I did some minor tweaking on this, so obviously we cannot see this now. So what we will need to do is just start the render, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, so this is the color correction I did afterwards. So obviously we can just change saturation, whatever we want to do here with those color correct nodes. And you can see it's updating super fast. And again, this is almost final quality already. If I zoom in here, you can see now it's totally noise free. You can see everything is looking very nice and crisp. And I'm displaying this on a 4K monitor, so don't be fooled by the image scale. It's actually, if you would look at this on a regular monitor, which is maybe not 4K resolution, it's a pretty big image, which is rendered like, I would say, almost real time, which is impressive. So yeah, we can change, I don't know, we can change anything we want now. So typically, we can change the ranges, for instance. We can, let's reduce these things. You can see now my color maps are updating, and it's rendering, it's live, it's amazing. So also, if we want to change environments, let's just switch to, I don't know, the Toronto, this guy here. It takes a bit of texture loading time, but yeah, not actually bad, right? So you can switch environments super fast. Change rotations, let's see how that works. Let's try 0 here. So yeah, and it's, again, rendering. It's all live on the GPU, real time, I'd say. So, and you see it's pretty cool. What else can we do? Let's say droid. We can change colors with the hue shifting here. Let's try that. And a cool thing now, which I want to show you, is I was talking about the light editor, right? So let's get the hang of this guy working. It's pretty cool too. All right, so let's just do 1-on-1 here. So let's say I want to just add a light here, right? I just stop the render. We go to the view panes here, and unfortunately, as I said, we cannot display the texture for these kind of things, which is not bad, but I just want to make something a bit more interesting here. So I'm just switching off the texture tab, so we see something here pretty white. Let's just see if we find a nice HDRI here. Let's just use this one. So what I want to show you is how you can use the OpenGL to actually add lights and actually place them properly. So clicking on this little light editor, which is the new thing here, you can just create a light source. Area light is created. The first 5 are Maya lights, and then it's Arnold lights. All right. Okay, so this is the area light, which is now, you can see it's in the origin, scaled to 1 unit. I typically try to model lights in real scale, so let's just try 75 units, which is in centimeters, and this could be a pretty large softbox. You can go a bit smaller, like 50 maybe. And yeah, so now you have this thing here, which is a look-through window, which opens another viewport, which is actually viewing through your light, and you can see the light is moving. I can select objects here. I can frame them as I'm used to, and now all we need to do, actually, now we can actually isolate this, so we only see the light, and we need to actually increase the intensity. Let's say maybe 14 stops, and you can see now how it's updating in the viewport here on the left. So if I rotate this, maybe I frame him again, and let's do some, I don't know, some backlighting or something like this. Something more interesting. We can change the color, make it maybe something red. Yeah, so let's see what this brings us. So if I render this now, let's go to the render view, hit render. Now everything is red, and you can see how close it matches, like how it catches the shape, or how it shapes the image, and it's, I would say, spot on, honestly. Like, obviously there's some metal here, so you don't see it on his shoulder, but if you look at the sphere or his head, it's pretty close, pretty impressive, right? So you can light this almost, like, you can pretty much light it in OpenGL and then just render it later or whatever. So moving it up here, you can see it's updating. It's a bit laggy for interactive movements because it keeps updating and rendering. So what I tend to do, I just stop the preview button there on the top, which interesting. Let's just stop the render then quickly and just go back to the viewport and I don't know, place it maybe top down or a bit more front lit. Go a bit up and we can change the exposure, maybe 16 stops for the light. Go back here, hit render. There we go, pretty bright and it's matching. So if I now remove the solo mode, we should get the IBL back as well. Let's hit play here actually. There we go. So now we have the robot in a red light. So it's almost fitting the environment. And you can see how, I'd say almost simple it is now to light stuff. You can totally light it in here and be done with that pretty much. And what else do I got? I have one more model by Rasul Edgy, and it's a pretty cool scene, or a pretty cool model. It's like a little bartender thing, and I didn't do much look dev on this thing right now. So let's just see if we bring in the source or display the texture here and make sure that we are in the textured mode here. We should see hopefully something showing up. I hope. Yeah, so now you can see the texture of this guy, and again we might need to do some kind of color ranges or color correct. So from now on I will just be working in the render view, and let's just render this and see. And keep in mind, this is actually streaming 4K texture maps right here, so it's also very interesting and very fast, by the way. So let's just switch it to maybe metal and see what we get. It's pretty dark now, so what we can do now is, I don't know, let's see, we have this paint mask. Let's just plug this into the ID slot fairly quickly just to see what that map looks like. It should be like a texture on his face, I think it was. Yeah, so it looks like this, and we can just use that to maybe add some color on this or something like that. So if we have the well, actually we have our metalness map too, so I think we should just plug this into the metalness slot here. Let's just remove isolate selected. And what else? We've got normals, we've got oil mask. So let's just use a paint mask to create maybe a layer on top. So what we can do is actually create a new shader. Let's just call this standard surface shader, and we just quickly connect this guy up to the shading engine so we get the result of that. And let's just create some pretty basic red paint, switch to the denoise one, and you can see how nice it is to work in this. So let's just create some quick dark desaturated paint, maybe a bit lighter, something like that. We can later put some bump on it or whatever. So I think this is pretty cool. Let's maybe make it a bit more shiny like that, so it's almost clear coated. And then we just create an AI mix shader and hook these things up. So let's just connect the output here to my shader 1 and this to the shading engine. Should be now a blend between two, which it is. So if it's a black color, it's the paint. So right now we need to invert this because the mask here is white where it should be paint. So we just need to switch the outputs around and hook the color to my slot 2, and then hook up the mask for just a red channel, mix it in, and now we get some paint on his hat. You see, that's pretty cool. And let's see what else we can do. I think we need to visualize the metalness fairly quick. It's interesting that it's fully white. I was not expecting that. Okay, so he's fully metal. Then we don't need this map after all. So we've got oil. Let's just see what the... Oh, we can just hook up the specular roughness. Hook that guy up to my the red channel to the specular roughness tab. And specular color, if you use metalness, different kind of metals have different kind of edge colors. And what you do, you just enable the metalness. So this is now taking the base color as the metal color. And then you can plug in a specular color, which represents the edge color tint. So you just hook this up, and then you should see the specular color applied. Roughness is applied and the spec color. And we also have a dirt mask. So let's see actually how that looks like. If you want to apply some dirt on top, let's see how this looks. And we will be tweaking the color slightly just for the base color for sure. So this is how the dirt mask looks like, and we will do a similar thing. We can just mix another shader with this, and why not? Let's just do that. So remove the isolate selected mode, go back to the diffuse render. And so now we're mixing the base with a paint, and then we want to mix it one more time with the white is the second. So we just hook this up here, and then we create another shader, which is a so this is actually the standard surface shader with some more simpler version. Let's just use that for this. And you can see it's actually very similar. It just has a bit less features, and most of the time you don't need all these crazy advanced features which the shader does not have, or it's at least not displayed. So let's just connect these guys up like so. So now it's again a 50-50 blend. So let's just bring in the weight for my standard surface shader. We can connect some fairly quick noise here just to get something interesting going. Let's just do base color and use UV space, scale it I think up, maybe try 25. Okay, our UVs are not perfect, I'd say, but it doesn't matter. We just want to do something fairly basic here. Doesn't matter much. All right, so now we just darken one color down. So this is just my super simple dust shader. We can make the diffuse rough, which is also a new feature that if you change diffuse roughness modes, it does not get darker anymore. It used to get darker, which is has been fixed. We can have a bit more shiny dust. I don't know, maybe something slightly more shiny like this. And now let's just hook up the mask for the dirt and use the red channel to drive the mix. And now most of it should disappear, by the way. So we should only see almost nothing. We can see there's some slight drips going on there. So this is this was the idea. So it's super subtle, nothing too crazy. And then we have a normal map. So let's hook this up. Input. Let's hook up the normal here. Hopefully this takes a bit of time to stream the textures, but it should be fairly quick. This is now with the normal map applied. So what I said before, I just want to change the base color, which is, I feel it's just a bit too dark. So let's just bring a color correct node in here, AI color correct, and hook up the color slots here and there to the base like this. And what we can do now, we can just boost the base color. Let's just do that. Oh, sorry, this was actually spec. This guy. All right, so let's just boost this, maybe like half a stop brighter, maybe a full stop brighter. We can even go 1.5. You can see now how the metal comes through, which is pretty cool. We can actually try 2. So now we have actually some metal going on. And now we can fine tune the specular roughness map as well. So which is this guy here. So we can just hook up an AI range like that. Hook these guys up. Just whatever, just the out color goes in here, and then the red goes into the specular roughness. And now we have the option or the power to just control that individually. So right now, let's just see what values we have. We have super rough values, which does not work for me. So I just enabled smooth stepping, which is kind of a like a little curve which clamps your values. So we want it to be a bit more shiny. So let's just increase the min to 0.1, 0.15, and let's go actually further, 2.5, 3.5. Okay, so now we have some pretty cool values, I think. So let's see how this looks like. So now we can definitely bring in those. You see now how nice and pop, like how much pop this got just by changing the roughness. So we change it from 0, which is super rough, to 0.25, which is a bit more rougher, and then 0.35 is almost pretty shiny, which is cool, and this is something you can definitely play with. Let's see what the specular color looks like. It's actually just a single color. Normally, depending on the metals, you have gold has, for instance, an orange color, so we don't actually need to hook this up if we don't want to, because it's just a constant, and we can change the specular color right here. So if you want to have it like a red edge color, we can just boost this up here, or leave it as a gray, how it was before, but typically you can just keep it on white then if there's nothing crazy going on. And again, this is using ACES workflow. It's displayed in a P3, let's just double check, a P3D60 gamut, which is just a bit more, it's a bit wider range. We are using the GPU. I can actually show you the settings I'm using. 10 AA samples. We do not use adaptive, but you can feel free to do so. I just think it's super nice to work with 10. It's super fast. We can use a denoiser. For final settings, I would enable adaptive sampling. No clamping going on. Ray depth is super low right now because we have these simple scenes. And yeah, so there's not much going on here. These are pretty much all the default settings. AOVs has denoise beauty enabled, which is actually giving us this secondary AOV, which is the denoised one, which is super handy. As you can see now, we can pretty much do lighting in real time. So if you want to switch maybe to the studio setup again, this is what it looks like in that environment, and you can see it's super fast and fun to work with. Let's try, what else do we have? Distillery, I think this is an outside one, which is super bright. Yeah, it is like in a clear setting. We still have this other light on, so we can actually just turn this off. If we want to, obviously rotate lights, super easy. Yeah, and my general feeling now is, as I said before, before this version, I was a bit on the fence using the GPU just because it took some time and it was not super interactive. But now, as you can see in this demo here, it's really fun, and it feels like it's just working out of the box now. And it is totally, it's super fast, it's cool. So let's try it. I wanted to actually show you the rivet thing, which I almost forgot. So I'm not sure how happy the render is if we do this, but let's just use the default shader, and let's say I want to have a focus point, right? Typically you want the eyes or something. So what you can do, you display the vertex mode and you just pick any point you want. Let's say this guy. You go to your rigging menu and then constrain, and you just create a rivet, which creates you a locator right there, and whenever this object moves, it will follow along. So what I tend to do, I just go to display, heads up display, show my object details. So now I get the distance to camera. So it's 322,998. Excuse me. And let's just plug that into our render cam. 322,998. Let's just go to the Arnold tab. Down below. 322.998. Enable depth of field, which is now on. And I think I had it off in the render settings. Yeah. And let's just hit render. Let's see what we get. So depth of field is on. Render should be cooking. So this is now the defocus on. So if I just disable that, you can see how super fast things work here. And if we want to go crazy on the aperture, why not? Just do an aperture of 5, and you can see now everything is super blurry. Like his behind the head is already out of focus. It's pretty cool stuff. And what we can do as well, like why not? Let's just we can actually zoom in here, and obviously now we would need to update the I think is it locked? No, it's not locked. We would just need to update the distance here. So it's 220,286. 220,286. Just change that, 220,286. So now we just updated the focus distance. What I tend to do is actually create a measuring tool, this guy, hook these things up and paste the connection there, so I don't need to worry about updating them manually. There's a little script here which I have on my lightshader.de website where you can download this kind of menu with some helper things. Focus rig is one of them. Yeah, so render view now, you can see how blurry that is. And I must say it looks pretty cool, right? All this crazy depth of field, you get the nice bokeh up there. And this is the beauty pass, right? And it's also fairly quick. So if I change my aperture to 1 again, so you can see it's blazingly fast. Even the cleanup phase is super quick. Switch back to denoise, and it's yeah. What do I say? I said it like more than 10 times already. It's pretty amazing to work with this now. And you can keep going, like bartender, let's change the shader again. Let's just go, okay. Let's just do a little hue shift on the base color, maybe 0.5. Now it's purple, this guy. If you go in the different direction, minus 0.05, it gets more green or teal. And yeah, and you can visualize everything with depth of field on. It's like typically this would take a super long time to render. Let's check just for the fun of it, check different environments, and then I think this sums it up pretty much. So let's look at studio again. Might be a bit bright in studio. It seems to work just fine. A bit very teal. Yeah, and just one more thing for the models I was using. So again, this is the bartender scene. It's Rasul's website right here, and he's got some really great work here. Great models, great concept art and all that stuff. So go check it out. And then we also have Aria, which he kindly provided me the little battle droid, and obviously his renders look 10 times better than what I did. He's got some nice rig set up, and it just looks super nice. So I was able to use this guy just to display a few things. So check out his ArtStation. Tons of good things up here, so keep that in mind. And yeah, I hope this little feature video about the new Maya 2020 and Arnold 6 update just gave you a quick introduction of how things are working now. And this release is, I would say, one of the better ones this year. It's super fun now. It's production ready. GPU is on par with the CPU. And yeah, check that out for sure. And I will also have a tutorial coming up using all this, using ACES workflow, using a wider gamut to display more color. I will use this. I had a live session recently about the ACES setup, and the tutorial will be just more about maybe look dev and a bit more about lighting, how to actually get interior lighting working properly. And I'll be using the GPU on that as well. So yeah, thanks again for checking this video out, and I hope you like these videos, a bit more like less tutorial but more like talking about new features and stuff. So yeah, if you like that video, leave me a note, leave me a comment, thumbs up, whatever you want to do. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in the next tutorial.